This is part 3 of Unit 9. Please start today by turning to your table of contents, and you can go ahead and write today's date in for pages 7 and 9. Once you've done that, please turn to page 7, and we're going to start at the top of page 7. We're going to talk today about how the body fights back, how it fights off disease. Before we start, I want to quickly define the word pathogen, because this is one that we'll be using as we're talking about what the body is busy fighting off. A pathogen is just simply something that causes a disease. You'll often hear this word used in a descriptive way, in an adjective way, pathogenic. We might say pathogenic bacteria. Viruses are pathogenic. So when we say a pathogen, we mean that thing that causes a disease. So the immune system is, of course, the system that is responsible for defending your body against disease and infection. As we already know from our last unit, the immune system is a system that's actually made of parts of lots of different systems, and they all have that common job of fighting off infection. So the immune system will be able to identify pathogens, the fact that they are pathogenic and that they don't belong there, and can fight them off. The immune system is able to often build up an immunity so that it can prevent reinfection of the same disease. And white blood cells are some of our key cells involved here, and of course we abbreviate those as WBCs. White blood cells are special cells that surround and digest pathogens, and we have several different types of white blood cells. You do not need to know the different types of white blood cells, but just so you know that there are a variety of different kinds that kind of all have special jobs in this process. Now, when the body is able to fight off or prevent you from getting a disease, we say that you have immunity. So immunity is when the body is able to fight or prevent a disease. Now, the way that they do this has to do with these next couple of words that sound really similar but actually mean the opposite of each other. These two words are kind of the mortal enemies of each other. An antigen is a molecule on a pathogen that identifies what it is. So when a pathogen comes into the body, it's not just that the body recognizes that it's something that causes a disease, but it actually is kind of like that pathogen is wearing a name tag. Imagine like one of those "Hello, my name is" name tags that says, I'm the cold virus, or I'm the flu virus, or I'm the polio virus. And that's what this molecule is like. It's like a name tag. So an antigen is like a name tag on the pathogen that says what it is. Now, the reason that's important is because our immune system, to fight off that antigen, that pathogen, has to know what it is, because the immune system has to make the right antibodies to fight them off. So an antibody is just simply a protein made by white blood cells for a specific antigen. So cold virus can only be fought off by the antibodies that are specifically matching the antigens on that virus. Okay, it's going to always be specific. Now, when this process happens, we have a series of steps that happen to reach that point of immunity, and we call that our immune response. So the immune response is how the immune system recognizes and defends itself from pathogens. Now, you've got this little diagram in your notes too, which kind of helps show you where these different steps are happening. What will happen is that a pathogen comes and gets in your body, and your immune system will right away recognize that something is there that shouldn't be, okay? So a white blood cell is going to rush over there, and it's going to surround the pathogen. It's going to read the name tag and say, hey, this is cold virus, or hey, this is flu virus, or whatever it is. And then it's going to send an alert out to other cells. And the other cells of the immune system then are going to start mobilizing. Okay? They are going to start making the antibodies that are needed to fight off that particular pathogen. Okay, so that's why it's really important that those white blood cells go up there and read the name tag first. And then they're going to start making the proper antibodies. Now, as this is all going on, it takes a little time. And when your immune system gets all pumped up, sometimes it causes symptoms like fevers and other things like that that you might get sick. It's very possible the pathogen is going to make you sick before your immune system gets a chance to start this process. So your immune system's kind of fighting this uphill battle. It's got to first recognize, then produce. Then it's going to destroy the pathogen. Those antibodies, once we have the right antibodies, they're going to destroy the pathogen. And then finally, what's going to happen is those antibodies are going to remain in your system. They're going to remain in your body. And so now, in the future, if you encounter this same pathogen again, your body doesn't have to go through all these steps of the immune response. Instead, you already have the immunity. You already have the antibodies sitting there ready to fight this off. So oftentimes it will be able to fight it off before you ever get sick. It keeps you from getting sick. And so this is all a natural process that a healthy immune system is going to be able to do. All right. So after you finished writing that, go ahead and turn to page 9. And while you're turning there, there's this little video I wanted you to see where you've got these white blood cells that are chasing bacteria. So see those little black like pairs of dots? Those are actually bacteria. This is, of course, under the microscope. And there's a white blood cell that is seeking it out. It's recognized that pathogen, and it is going to surround it and start this whole process. Okay, so now top of page 9, we're going to talk a little bit about vaccines. So a vaccine is something that we, of course, put into our body with the purpose of creating this immune response. So a vaccine is made of weakened virus particles that can no longer cause the disease. All right, they have gone through a process, a chemical process that actually weakens them to a point where they're unable to cause the infection. So some examples, and there's lots and lots of different vaccines, but here's just 2 examples, the flu shot or the polio vaccine. These are examples of vaccines. Now, most vaccines are for viral infections only. There are very few exceptions, but the vast majority of vaccines are for infections caused by viruses as opposed to bacteria or fungus or other things like that. And this is really important because viruses must be prevented. We have very few medications that we can take after we have a virus. I'm not saying there's none, but there's very few. Antibiotics don't work on viruses. They're for bacteria. So our best bet is to prevent you from ever getting the virus in the first place or fighting it off before it can make you sick. And so what happens is you get a vaccination, and a vaccination is just simply when you are given a vaccine by injection or by mouth or occasionally by like a nasal mist. Maybe you've had the flu mist before. But most of them are shots or drops in the mouth. And the vaccine is going to start the immune system's natural immune response, as if the real pathogen is entering the body. So you're getting in the vaccine this weakened form of the virus that's not going to make you sick. However, your immune system has been tricked. They actually think, the immune system thinks that you have been infected, and so it starts the whole immune response and makes the antibodies to fight this pathogen off. Okay? So it doesn't actually need to, but because you've ramped up your immune system, sometimes when you get a vaccine, you might feel a little sick. And that's because your immune system has been kicked into overdrive and is busy making all the stuff it needs to fight this infection off. So then you are left with the immunity. You are left with those antibodies in your system that keep you able to fight the disease. And so a vaccine is really just designed to mimic what a healthy immune system will do on its own. But what it does is it prevents us from having to go through the trouble of getting sick first. Okay, so it's going to trigger that whole response again without us having to actually have the infection first. Where in most cases, our natural immune response requires that we get sick first and then we fight it off. All right, so we're going to take a little break from notes. And if you would, please go back to your table of contents. And please add today's date to page 6, the raft. And then I'm going to have you go to your score sheet. Will you please add this, because we're actually going to rename that assignment. It's not just a raft. It's called Choose One. So if you'll please fill in assignment number 4. And then once you're done writing that in, please turn to page 6. When you get to page 6 for Choose One, what you're going to be doing is you're going to put your name in the top corner of the page, and you're going to choose one of the following options. There's 2 options to choose from in this assignment. I'll explain the options in a second, but once you've listened to the explanation and seen the screens that go with it, you're going to have 10 minutes to complete it. And you might not need a full 10 minutes, and that's okay. You don't have to wait for 10 minutes. But 10 minutes needs to be the max amount of time you use to complete it. So to keep yourself on track, you've got a couple of options. You can set your own timer if you want. If you've got one on your phone, you can take that out and set the timer. You can use a clock on your phone or on your computer or on the wall to keep track of your own time. Or there's also a link for a 10-minute timer on my website. It's the next link on the website. So if you want to use that 10-minute timer, you can do that as well. All right, so now on page 6, here's option number 1. Listen before you start. You'll be able to see the screen again. One option is to write a raft. And so if you're going to do that, you would write the R-A-F-T up at the top here. And in this case, your role is going to be you're writing from the perspective of a white blood cell. Your audience is a pathogen, so any pathogen. You can be specific or general. You can just call in the pathogen, or you can be specific like cold virus or whatever. The format is an unfriendly letter. Now, I'm guessing everybody's learned how to write a friendly letter at some point in the past. You're going to be unfriendly, like be downright mean. Just keep it PG, okay? And the topic is, don't even try. In other words, you are going to tell that pathogen why you as the white blood cell have no time for it. Okay? Now, it should be 2 or 3 interesting and creative paragraphs, and try to use as many of your keywords as you can from pages 7 and 9. After writing, please highlight all of the keywords you've used and make sure that you stick to the 10-minute limit. Okay? That's option 1. Option 2 is to do a comic. And your comic would be a comic strip about a pathogen trying to get in and the white blood cell fighting them off. All right? So, the particulars here are that it should be at least 6 panels. It must include dialogue. Use as many keywords as you can in the dialogue. And after writing, highlight all the keywords used. Again, make sure you stick to that 10-minute deadline. Monitor your time. There are your choices, so pause now and choose one. And when you're done, you're going to want to set that timer for yourself. All right. You have 10 minutes of work time. When you're finished, come get your stamp for page 6. It's the end of part